John was an ordinary man. He lived a simple life on Earth, working a 9-to-5 job at a local tech company. Didn't have many friends, and he preferred it that way. His life was predictable, peaceful, and frankly, a little boring. However, that all changed one morning when he found an unusual letter in his mailbox. The envelope was large and made of fine silver paper. It had strange symbols on the front, symbols John had never seen before. The letter was addressed to him, but not in the way he expected. It read, "To John, the closest friend of Alarin, my husband." The name caught his attention. Alarin was a name John hadn't heard in years. Alarin was an old friend from his college days. They had lost touch after Alarin went to space to work with a group of explorers. John hadn't heard from him since, but he never forgot their bond. With curiosity swirling inside him, John carefully opened the envelope. The letter inside was written in neat, flowing handwriting. It began, "Dear John, I hope this letter finds you well. If you are reading this, then I have sadly passed away, and my time has come, and I am no longer among the living. But I write to you with a request, one that I ask you to consider with care. You have always been a man of loyalty and honor, and because of this, I trust you to fulfill this final duty. I leave behind something very precious to me. Her name is Zira. She is my wife, and she is now in your care. Please read the following carefully. I know you may have many questions, but the answers will come in time. Sincerely, Alarin." John stared at the letter, not fully understanding what it meant. His mind raced. Zira. Who was this woman? And why was Alaron sending her to him? He thought about the old days, the fun they had in college, the adventures they shared, and the deep conversations they'd had about the future. But he had never heard him speak of a wife, let alone an alien wife. The letter continued, explaining that Alarin had been stationed on a distant planet, far away from Earth, as part of an intergalactic exploration team. He had married Zira, a beautiful alien from a distant star system, as part of a diplomatic mission. Alarin had grown to love her, but the nature of their union had always been complicated, as they came from very different worlds. Zira was bound by her own cultural traditions, and Alarin, as her closest human friend, had been entrusted with her care in case of his death. John's head spun as he read the letter again. Was this some kind of joke? He could hardly believe it. It all seemed so unreal. He had no idea what to expect, but his curiosity got the better of him. He had to know more. He had to meet this woman, this alien wife of his friend. The letter also included a plane ticket, a set of coordinates, and a message for John to meet Zira at a remote spaceport. The flight would take him far from his small town to a place he'd never imagined stepping. Fiera smiled warmly as John stepped into the room. "Hello, John," she said, her voice soft yet strong. "It's a pleasure to finally meet you." John was speechless for a moment. He'd expected something different, but seeing her standing there looking so serene and composed left him speechless. He had no idea what to say, so he simply nodded and greeted her. I'm sorry for your loss," he managed to say. "Thank you," she replied with a gentle smile. "Alarin was a good man. He spoke of you often." John felt a lump form in his throat. It was strange this woman was not just his friend's wife, a part of a world far beyond anything he could have imagined. And so, his new life began, a life he never asked for, but one that was now his responsibility. A life with Zira, his friend's widow, and now, perhaps, something more. What was to come? John didn't know. But he was about to find out. John stood in the doorway, unsure of what to do next. Zira, the beautiful alien woman, was standing before him. Her soft silver-blue skin shimmered under the light, and her large almond-shaped eyes met his gaze with an unexpected calmness. Her beauty was like nothing he had ever seen before, and her presence felt powerful yet peaceful, as if she belonged to another world entirely. Zira smiled at him again, her smile gentle but warm. "I know this is unexpected. For you, John, I can only imagine what you must be feeling right now." John shifted uncomfortably, his nerves still running high. Had prepared himself for this meeting, or so he thought. But now that he was actually standing face to face with Zira, Everything felt different. Her alien beauty was overwhelming, and the strange truth of the letter started to sink in. Thank you for meeting me," John finally managed to say, though the words felt awkward and out of place. "I wasn't sure what to expect, but this is a lot to take in." Zira's smile widened slightly, as though she understood exactly what he was going through. "It's a lot for me as well. I never imagined my life would lead to this moment either. But here we are." John stepped into the room fully, the door sliding shut behind him. The room was simple, with just a few pieces of furniture, but it felt somehow out of place, as if it belonged to another time. Wasn't anything like the modern apartments or houses John was used to. This room had an aura of ancient history, yet there was a calm elegance to it. The walls had patterns that seemed to shift, almost like they were alive. Changing in subtle waves of color, John's eyes were drawn back to Zira. She was standing just a few feet away, waiting for him to say something more. He tried to find the right words, but his mind felt blank. How was he supposed to react to this? To an alien widow standing in front of him who was now his responsibility? Finally, Zira spoke again, breaking the silence. "You're probably wondering what happens next? I understand. The transition won't be easy for either of us. But I want to assure you that I'm here to make it as simple as possible." John nodded, his head spinning. "I know where to start. You're Alaren's wife, but I don't know anything about you. About your world? About what you need from me?" Zira took a deep breath and walked toward the window. She gazed out at the vast expanse of stars that stretched across the endless sky, her hands clasped together in front of her. John couldn't help but admire the way she moved delicately, as though her every step was measured and deliberate. "I understand. You've just learned about me, and it's a lot to take in all at once. Let me explain. Alaren and I were married not long after we met. It wasn't out of love at first. Our marriage was more of an arrangement, an agreement made for the sake of diplomacy. My people needed an alliance with humans, and Alaren was the perfect candidate. He was a man of peace, understanding, and strength." She paused, her voice growing softer as she spoke. "But in time, I grew to love him. We built something real. Together." John listened quietly, his mind racing. He never imagined that Alaren's marriage would be so complicated. He thought of his old friend as a simple guy, someone who liked to joke around and enjoy life. To hear that he had been involved in such a serious, intergalactic marriage left him with a strange feeling. But he couldn't ignore the sorrow in Zira's voice. It was clear she had loved Alaren deeply. Zira turned away from the window, looking back at him. "When Alaren passed, I was left alone. My people have customs that are very different from yours. According to our traditions, when a partner dies, the surviving one is bound to the closest friend of their spouse. I had hoped I would be allowed to grieve in private, but my people do not allow it. They believe the living must carry on for the sake of the family. And now, it seems that you are my new family." John swallowed hard, trying to wrap his mind around everything she was saying. "So, you're here because of a tradition. You don't have a choice?" Zira nodded slowly. "In a way, yes. But it's more than just tradition. Oh, I wanted to meet you because I was told Alaren spoke highly of you. He trusted you, and I trust him. That is why I am here, and why I have come to you." John paused, trying to find the right words. "I don't know if I can be what you need. I'm not anything special, just an ordinary guy." Zira smiled again, her eyes softening. "You are exactly what I need, John. You are his closest friend. That is enough." There was a quiet moment between them. The weight of the situation began to settle in for John. He had always been someone who liked his life simple, but this was anything but simple. He had inherited not just property or wealth, but something much more complex, an alien wife who was bound by custom, a woman from another world who had shared a deep bond with his lost friend. He took a deep breath. Realizing that he wasn't just standing in front of a beautiful alien woman, he was standing at the edge of something far bigger. This was just the beginning. The life he knew was now gone, replaced with something strange and unknown. "Okay," John said quietly, more to himself than to Zira. "I'll help you. We'll figure this out together." Zira nodded, a gentle smile on her face. "Thank you, John. I believe we will." As John looked at her, he realized that this was only the start of a journey neither of them could predict. He was no longer just an ordinary guy from Earth. He was tied to something far greater. And Zira, his friend's widow, was now part of his life in a way he couldn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. His life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. John couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just been turned upside down. He had always been someone who enjoyed routine, someone who appreciated the quiet and simplicity of life. But now, with Zira in his home, everything was different. She was not just a stranger. She was the widow of his old friend, a woman from a faraway star system, and somehow, she was now tied to him by an ancient tradition. For the first few days, things were awkward. John wasn't sure how to act around Zira. He was still trying to come to terms with the fact that he had inherited an alien wife from his friend. He didn't know what kind of relationship they were supposed to have, or how much he was supposed to help her. After all, she wasn't just any woman, she was someone from a completely different world, with customs and beliefs that John could barely begin to understand. Zira, on the other hand, seemed calm and collected. She didn't push John for anything, but she did her best to make him feel comfortable. She shared stories of her home planet, explaining how her people lived in harmony with the universe, how their advanced technology was designed to help and protect life rather than destroy it. She spoke of her past with Alarin, and John listened intently, learning about the bond they had shared. It was clear that Zira had loved Alarin deeply, and the grief she carried was something he could relate to. Even if he couldn't fully understand it, as the days passed, something shifted between them. John began to realize that Zira wasn't just a stranger who had been forced into his life. She was a person with hopes, dreams, and a past that was filled with love and loss. He started to see her not just as the widow of his old friend, but as someone who had been through so much. Someone who was now alone in a strange world. One evening, after dinner, they sat in the small living room of John's house, a cozy space. With a few mismatched chairs and a couch, Zira had been telling him more about her home planet, and for the first time, John felt like he was really connecting with her. She spoke with such passion, her eyes lighting up as she described the stars and the cities of her world. There was something captivating about her, something beyond her alien beauty. She wasn't just a mysterious figure from another planet, she was a person with depth and intelligence, someone who had experienced loss and now needed a friend. "Never been this far from home," Zira said softly, looking out the window at the stars. "On my planet, everything is connected. The air, the water, the land. There is harmony in everything. But here, everything feels ... disconnected. People live alone, even when they're surrounded by others." At the same time, Zira was adjusting to life on Earth. She had to learn about human customs, something that wasn't easy for her, but John could see that she was trying, and he admired her for it. She would often ask questions, seeking to understand the world around her. She was eager to learn not just about Earth's culture, but about John's life, his childhood, his hopes, and his dreams. One afternoon, as they sat together in the garden, Zira asked him a question that made him pause. "What do you dream?" "About John," she asked, her voice soft but curious. John thought for a moment. He wasn't used to talking about his dreams, not in the way Zira was asking. "I don't know," he said slowly. "I guess I've never really thought about it much. I've always just focused on getting by, on living each day." Zira looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "But you must have something you hope for, something you want to achieve." John scratched the back of his head, feeling a little embarrassed. "I guess I've never really had any big ambitions. I'm just ... happy living a quiet life." Zira smiled gently. "There's nothing wrong with that. But maybe there's more to you than you realize, John. Sometimes, the things we dream about aren't as far away as we think." Her words stayed with him long after the conversation ended. John couldn't help but think about what she had said. Was there more to his life than just going through the motions? Was there something he could do, something he could give, that would make a difference in the world? As the days turned into weeks, John found himself looking at Zira in a new light. She wasn't just his responsibility. She was someone he genuinely cared about. He had never imagined that he could form such a deep connection with an alien, but the bond between them was undeniable. They were two people from different worlds, thrown together by fate, but somehow, they were beginning to understand each other in ways that felt almost natural, for the first time in a long while. John felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. He wasn't just living a quiet life anymore. He was becoming a part of Zira's world, and she was becoming a part of his. It was an unlikely bond, one that neither of them had expected, but it was growing stronger every day. As they sat together in the garden that evening, watching the stars twinkle in the distance, John felt a sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. Maybe, just maybe, he was starting to understand what Zira had meant when she spoke about connection. And perhaps in the process, he had found something he hadn't even known he was looking for. A bond that could change both of their lives forever. John had never expected his life to change so quickly. One day he was living his quiet life, working and keeping to himself. The next, he was sharing his home with Zira, an alien widow from a faraway planet. As the days passed, John found himself learning more about Zira, and with each passing day, the bond between them grew stronger. But despite their closeness, there was something that Zira kept hidden, a part of her past that she hadn't yet shared. Zira had always been calm, collected, and graceful. Her smile was always warm, and her voice was soothing, like a gentle breeze. But every now and then, John noticed something in her eyes, shadow, a flicker of fear that would disappear as quickly as it appeared. It wasn't much, but John had been paying attention. He could tell that there was something more to her story, something that she wasn't telling him. One evening, as the two of them sat in the living room, John decided to ask her about it. They had been talking about her home planet again. How beautiful and peaceful it was. But this time, John didn't just listen. He asked her a question that had been on his mind for days. "Zira," John said softly, "there's something I've been wondering. You've told me a lot about your world, your people, and Alaren, but I feel like there's something you haven't shared. Is there more to your story? Something you're not telling me?" Zira looked at him, her expression unreadable. Moment, the room was silent, as if she were debating whether or not to say anything. Finally, she let out a sigh, a deep, almost imperceptible sound. She placed her hands on her lap and looked down at them, as if gathering her thoughts. "You're right, John," she said quietly. "There is more to my story. I've kept it hidden because I didn't want to burden you. But I can't keep it to myself any longer." John listened intently, his curiosity growing. He had a feeling that whatever Zira was about to tell him would change everything. "When Alaren and I were married, it wasn't just for diplomatic reasons," Zira began, her voice steady but with a hint of sadness. "My people are not like humans. We live in a delicate balance with the universe, and we are tied to forces beyond our understanding. Alaren knew this, but even he didn't fully understand the danger I faced." John was confused. "Danger? What kind of danger?" Zira paused. For a moment, then looked up at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and determination. "There are enemies in the universe, beings who want to control the power that my people hold. Our abilities are unique, and many would do anything to harness them for their own gain. I have spent most of my life running from these enemies, hiding in the shadows, trying to stay safe." John's heart raced. "But why didn't you tell me about this before?" "I didn't want to drag you into it," Zira replied. "When Alaren and I married, I hoped that our love would protect us, that it would keep me safe. But after his death, I knew that I couldn't stay hidden forever. The danger was growing, and I had no choice but to reach out to you." John's mind was spinning. He had known that Zira's past was complicated, but he hadn't realized how dangerous it truly was. He had thought that their connection was just a matter of tradition and responsibility, but now he understood that there was much more at stake. "So these enemies, they're after you?" John asked, his voice filled with concern. "What they want from you?" Zira's expression darkened and her voice grew colder. "They want control, want the power that comes with my abilities. My people have learned to tap into the energy of the universe itself, but it comes at a cost. The more we use it, the more we are exposed to those who would take it from us. My abilities make me a target. John couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had known Zira was powerful, but he hadn't realized just how much danger she was in. He felt a surge of protectiveness rise within him. He wasn't just a widow he had inherited by tradition. She was someone who had been through unimaginable trials. Someone who had fought for her life and her people. "I won't let them hurt you, Zira," John said firmly. "I promise I'll protect you. Whatever this danger is, we'll face it together." Zira looked at him, her eyes softening. She seemed touched by his words, but there was a trace of doubt in her gaze. "It's not that simple, John. You don't know what they're capable of. These enemies are not like anything you've encountered before. They are powerful, and they have resources beyond anything Earth can imagine." "I don't care," John replied, his voice filled with determination. "You don't have to face this alone. I'm not just going to stand by and let something happen to you." Zira studied him for a moment, and then, to John's surprise, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was genuine. "You're brave, John. I didn't expect you to respond like this. I thought you would be scared, or maybe even try to run. But you're offering to stand by me even when you don't fully understand what you're getting into?" John's heart pounded in his chest. He didn't fully understand it, but he knew that he couldn't turn his back on her. He didn't know what the future held, but he was certain of one thing he couldn't let. Zira faced this danger alone. They were connected now, in ways he hadn't imagined, and he would do whatever it took to protect her. As they sat there, the weight of the situation settled in. John knew that their lives would never be the same again. They were no longer just two strangers thrown together by fate. They were partners, bound by something stronger than tradition. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. And for the first time in a long while, John felt ready for whatever came next. The days following their conversation about Zira's past were filled with unease. Though Zira tried to act calm, John could sense that the fear she had been hiding was now growing. The enemy she spoke of had not forgotten about her, and they were drawing closer. John could feel the tension in the air, as if something was about to happen, something neither of them could control. For the first time, John felt truly out of his depth. He was just an ordinary man. He wasn't trained to fight or face the kind of danger Zira had been running from for so long. But when he looked at her, his determination grew. Zira was not just a responsibility anymore. She was someone he cared about, someone he wanted to protect, and he would do whatever it took to keep her safe. One evening, after dinner, they were sitting together in the living room, the dim light casting long shadows around them. Zira had been unusually quiet for most of the day. John didn't want to press her, but he knew something was wrong. He had to ask. "Zira," he began gently, "you've been quiet lately. Is there something you're not telling me?" Zira looked at him, her eyes tired but steady. "I've been trying to keep my fears at bay, John, but the truth is they're getting closer. The enemies I've been running from, they found me." John's heart sank. He'd feared this day would come, but hearing Zira's words made it feel all too real. He didn't know what to do or how to help her. "What do they want with you?" he asked. Zira hesitated before speaking. "They want what I carry, the power that is inside me. It is not just physical strength, it's something deeper, connected to the very energy of the universe itself. My people have learned to." John felt a cold shiver run down his spine. He hadn't fully grasped the depth of the danger Zira was facing. She wasn't just a widow hiding from enemies. She was carrying something powerful, something others wanted to use for destruction. "What can we do?" John asked, his voice tense with worry. Zira met his gaze, her expression a mixture of sadness and determination. "There is nothing you can do alone, John. I have faced these enemies before, and I know their ways. They are relentless, and they have resources that reach far beyond this planet. I'm afraid that if they find me, they will destroy everything in their path to get to me." John clenched his fists, the urge to protect her overwhelming. "I won't let that happen," he said firmly. "I don't care what it takes. We'll figure this out together." Zira looked at him, her eyes softening. "You don't know what you're saying, John. This is not a battle for the faint-hearted. You have no idea the kind of force they can bring. These enemies are ruthless and will stop at nothing." John stood up, his mind made up. Then I'll make sure I'm not faint-hearted. I have to learn how to fight, how to protect you. I will. I don't care what I have to face. We'll deal with this together. Zero watched him for a long moment. Then, a slow smile spread across her face. You're brave, John. I never expected you to respond this way. Most would have run at the first sign of danger. John shrugged, his expression hardening. Not going anywhere. I promised I would protect you, and I meant it. They both sat down again, the weight of their conversation hanging in the air. Zira didn't say much more that night, but John could see that his words had done something. Maybe she hadn't fully believed that he could handle what was coming. But now, she seemed to believe that he would try. The next day, things took a turn for the worse. John was at work when he received an urgent message from Zira. It was short, but clear. They're here. John's heart pounded in his chest as he grabbed his things and rushed out the door. His mind raced. What had happened? Who was after them? What did they want? When he arrived home, the sight that greeted him was enough to send a chill down his spine. There was a figure standing in the doorway, someone cloaked in a dark, flowing robe. They had a strange, otherworldly aura about them, and their eyes glowed with an eerie light. Zira was standing a few feet away, her posture tense. She looked at John, her face pale, her lips barely moving, as she whispered, "This is one of them. This is one of the enemies I've been running from." John didn't hesitate. He rushed to her side, his body tense, ready to protect her at all costs. The figure in the doorway stepped forward, their eyes locked on Zira. The atmosphere was thick with danger. "You cannot hide forever, Zira," the figure said, their voice cold and echoing. "The power inside you will belong to us. And if you do not come willingly, we will take it by force." John stepped in front of Zira, his heart racing. "You'll have to go through me first." The figure let out a low, menacing laugh. It was very well, but you will regret this decision. John stood tall, determined. This was at the moment he had been fearing. The moment when their lives would change forever, and he was ready. He had to be. For Zero, for himself, and for whatever future they might still have together. The figure in the doorway continued to stare at John, its glowing eyes piercing the dim light of the room. John could feel his heart racing, but he stood firm. Zero was right behind him, her presence both a comfort and a burden. He knew that what was about to happen would test everything he believed in. "You should have stayed hidden," Zira the figure said in a cold, mechanical voice. "Now, you've made this more difficult for yourself. We won't stop until we have what we came for." John stepped forward, his voice steady, but filled with determination. "You're not taking her anywhere, not while I'm here." The figure didn't flinch. Instead, it raised a hand, and for a split second, the air around them seemed to hum. With a strange energy, it was unlike anything John had ever felt before. It was almost suffocating. The figure's power was real. It was clear that John was far out of his league. Zira placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch soft yet firm. "John, be careful," she whispered. "They are more dangerous than you know." John turned to look at her, his face determined, not backing down. The figure laughed, a hollow sound that sent chills down John's spine. "You're brave, but this is not your fight. You cannot win against us. We've been watching you both, waiting for the right moment." John felt his stomach drop. "Do you mean waiting for the right moment?" Zara's face hardened. "Zara's been watching me, John, ever since I'd left my planet. They know everything. They knew when Alarone died. They knew when I came to Earth. They've been planning this for a long time." John's mind spun as the truth sank in. Everything, from the moment Zira had arrived, had been part of a bigger plan. The enemies she had spoken of were not just after her. They were after everything she had left behind. They had been manipulating her, waiting for the perfect time to strike, but why now? Why were they coming for her so aggressively? Zero stepped forward, her posture commanding. "What is it you want from me?" she demanded, her voice stronger than John had ever heard it. The figure's glowing eyes narrowed. "We want what you carry. The power inside you is far too valuable to leave in your hands. We will take it. And there will be nothing you can do to stop us." John's heart skipped a beat. The power Zira had spoken of, he hadn't fully understood it before, but now it seemed like the key to everything. These enemies were after more than just her life. They were after something far more dangerous. They wanted control of the power that Zira carried, the energy of the universe itself. John's mind raced as he tried to come up with a plan. But his thoughts were interrupted by a voice that was not the figure's. "Is that truly what you believe?" A calm, familiar voice asked. John spun around, his eyes wide with shock. Standing at the back of the room as though she had materialized from the shadows was another figure. This one was different, more graceful, more pow. It was Zero, but not the Zero he knew. This woman had an aura of power that radiated from her, her eyes glowing with the same energy the figure in the doorway possessed. John felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't speak for a moment, unsure of what was happening. Is this some kind of trick? "You," Zero whispered, her voice filled with disbelief. "How's this possible?" The new Zira smiled gently. "I knew the day would come when you would finally find out. But I didn't think it would be so soon." In hiding in plain sight, allowing this deception to play out, waiting for the right moment to reveal myself, John was stunned. The Zira he had known was not the real one. She was the one being controlled, was the one being used as a vessel for this hidden power. Zira, the one he had cared for, stepped back in shock, her face pale. You're not me." The new Zero nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. "I am the one who controls the power. But I could never use it fully until you had passed the tests, until you had learned what it meant to carry this burden." John felt a wave of confusion hit him. What did all of this mean? The woman he had thought was the real Zira had been a decoy, a vessel for this power all along? The new Zira turned to him, her gaze cold and calculating. "You see, John, the real plan was never to take her power. It was to guide her to me, so that I could return it to its true place. I needed her to face this moment so that I could finally emerge." John stepped back, the pieces of the puzzle finally starting to fit together. But why? Why bring me into this? Why not just take the power from her when you had the chance? The new Zira's smile softened, just slightly. Because she needed to learn the value of human connection. She needed to learn that she was not alone, that she had a choice. And you, John, are the key to her decision. You have shown her that she has more than just power. She has love, she has trust, and those are the forces that will save us all. John's mind was spinning. The real Zira, the one he had come to care for, was standing in front of him. But she wasn't the person she had seemed to be. She had been playing a part all along, and now the truth had been revealed. As the tension in the room grew, John realized that this wasn't the end of their journey, it was only the beginning. The real battle was just beginning, and he had no idea what would happen next. But one thing was clear, he would fight for Zira, no matter who or what she truly was. The room was heavy with silence, the weight of the truth hanging in the air. John stood there, his heart pounding, trying to process everything. The woman he had thought was Zira, the woman he had come to care for, wasn't the real Zira at all. The woman standing before him now, the one who had revealed herself, was the true source of the power Zira had been carrying. It was as if the ground beneath him had shifted, and he wasn't sure where he stood anymore. Zira, the woman he had known, seemed to be in shock. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had no words, only a deep confusion in her gaze. John reached out to her instinctively, wanting to comfort her, but she stepped back, her expression a mix of hurt and realization. "Is it true?" Zira whispered, her voice almost breaking. "Am I not who I thought I was?" The new Ziratha, one with the glowing eyes and powerful presence, nodded slowly. "You are part of me, but not the whole. I am the true power, the source of everything you've carried within you. But you are more than just a vessel. You are the key to what comes next." John turned to the new Zero, his confusion turning into frustration. "What do you mean by what comes next? Why all of this? Why the lies?" The new Zira's gaze softened, and for a moment she almost seemed human. "I had to protect you, both of you. You had to believe in your own strength. Zira, you had to learn that there is more to life than power. That connection, love, and trust can be stronger than any force in the universe. John shook his head. This is insane. You've played with our lives like it's some kind of game. You have any idea what you've done to her? To me? The new Zira stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I do. But I knew you both needed to see the truth. Needed to face it. Zira, you were never meant to carry this burden forever. The power was always meant to return to its source. Zira looked at her with a mixture of fear and uncertainty. But I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was protecting it. I didn't know. The new Zira's face softened as she reached out to her. You were protecting it in your way. But now, it's time for it to return. It's time for you to understand your true role in this. John stood by, watching the exchange between them. He felt completely lost in all of this. He had never signed up for any of this. Never imagined his life would be tangled in such cosmic forces. But now, it seemed like his entire world was changing. Zira was no longer just the alien woman he had been entrusted with. She was something far more complicated. And as much as he wanted to walk away, he knew he couldn't. Not now. Not when everything had come to this point. He turned to Zira, his voice soft but steady. Zira, no matter what, I'm not leaving you. Whatever happens next, I'll be here. Zira looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and fear. But you don't understand. It's power, it's too much for any one person to handle. You can't stop it. You can't control it. I've seen what happens to those who try. John took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. I don't need to control it. I just need to stand by you. That's enough. The new Zira watched them quietly, and for the first time, there was a flicker of something like approval in her eyes. You have a strong heart, John. You are more than you realize. Perhaps you were always meant to be part of this, part of what comes next. John frowned. What do you mean? The new Zira's voice grew more serious. The balance of the universe is fragile. The power I carry, the power Zira carries, is not just about destruction. It's about maintaining balance, keeping the peace across galaxies. If I return to my true form, the universe will be in danger. You see, it's not just the power I carry that's at risk. It's the very fabric of everything we know. Top this from falling apart? The new Zira met her gaze with a look of understanding. You've already done the hardest part. You've learned to trust each other. That is the foundation of everything. Now, it's time for the final step. The air around them began to shimmer, and for a moment, John thought he saw stars flickering in the room, as if the very universe was watching. The power that Zira carried was building, and John could feel it in his bones. It was no longer something distant and abstract. It was real, and it was happening right before his eyes. The new Zira closed her eyes and spoke in a language John couldn't understand. But as she did, a soft light began to glow from within her, and the room seemed to pulse with energy. John stepped back, not sure what was happening, but feeling an undeniable pull toward Zira, the woman he had come to love and protect. The light grew brighter, and Zira's figure began to change, shifting, almost merging with the power that had always been a part of her. It was as if she were becoming something new, something different, something stronger. Finally, Zira spoke, her voice calm but filled with power. I understand now. It's not about the power. It's about the choices we make, the connections we form, and how we use what we have for good. John felt the weight of her words. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of something new. A new chapter, not just for Zira, but for him as well. Together, they would face whatever came next. And this time, they would face it as equals. United by the love and trust they had built, no longer just pawns in some grand cosmic game. They had become something more, something real. As the light around them faded, the future seemed uncertain. But one thing was clear. Zira and John were no longer just two people thrown together by fate. They were partners, ready to face whatever the universe had in store. And together, they would make sure that the balance was restored. Ask ChatGPT.